First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
The video of 5 police officers violently attacking a black man has once again put concerns about policing in the national spotlight, reigniting talks about reform. Good evening and welcome to First at 5 from WUFT News. I'm Kennedy Mason.
And I'm Julianna Reichenbach. Thanks for joining us. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are revisiting federal police reform legislation after Senate negotiations broke down in 2021.
NBC's Alice Barr reports from Washington. The Hogtown Medieval Fair attracted artisans from around the world to an old-time market for the last 36 years.
But with this year's location change, guests who came to stroll through Hogtown's vibrant streets found themselves sitting on Southwest Archer Road instead.
Isabella, it was quite a wait for some people, correct?
It was. Gainesville residents looked forward to exploring the past of the medieval times for the past 3 weekends, only to be met with a modern issue, traffic. I spoke with the lady who lives in Gainesville about her experience waiting almost 2 hours in standstill traffic to get to the Hogtown Medieval Fair. Costumes, food, horses, kings and queens are all things Gainesville residents expected to see when going to the Hogtown Medieval Fair. One thing they didn't expect, traffic.
We waited an hour and a half before we left. We didn't end up going, because it would have been like an absurd another hour and a half.
What was supposed to be a 10 to 15 minute drive for most took over an hour in standstill traffic. The clutter of vehicles is blamed on the fair's recent location change from near the Gainesville Regional Airport to a field on Southwest Archer Road. Catherine Monagas made the expected 10-minute drive Saturday to experience her first ever medieval fair, only to turn around and head back home after a frustrating hour wait in her car.
Just wanted to go so extraordinarily badly to that festival, and I had been looking forward to it for weeks. So when suddenly we couldn't go, it just really sucked.
Catherine couldn't brave the traffic, but those who did experienced the medieval times come to life. The wait people wonder what the future holds for the medieval fair and whether any further location changes will be made. The photojournalist for that story was WUFT's Alexis Ashby. You can find her full report on WUFT.org. Back to you.
Thanks, Isabella. We sure had a warm start to our weekend, Kennedy.
We absolutely did. I think temperatures were almost at a record high for our Monday. WUFT's Julia Haley joins us now with the weather forecast.
Kennedy, Julianna, it might as well be spring with these temperatures sitting even in the 80s, 82 in Gainesville and Ocala, 84 the Villages, 87 even in Jacksonville. And that's because of those southwesterly winds giving us a bit of a temperature increase from what we saw yesterday. So a 5-degree increase in Gainesville, 9 degrees in Stark, and just a little bit north of I-10, 12 degrees difference in Jacksonville, and a 12-degree increase in Tallahassee as well. So take a look outside, currently seeing those beautiful blue skies, 84 degrees, feels just a little bit warmer, and we have some clouds as well outside of the Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. So a beautiful day to go outside and soak in the sun while you still can. On to our hour by hour, staying in the 80s and dropping this evening into the 60s. So we have those clouds rolling in, and then due to those southwesterly winds, we actually are getting some fog in the morning along with that moisture as well. So some widespread fog for your Tuesday morning. Back to you.
The insurer of last resort is seeing policy numbers swell after a devastating hurricane season. This comes after private insurance companies continue to drop customers and raise rates. Citizens Property Insurance has doubled, hitting $1 million. If another hurricane hits, they may not have reinsurance to pay all of the claims. Local insurance agent John Darr says they would have to assess policyholders.
Those that have bought Citizens policies will be assessed what could be substantially more than if they had just bought it in the private market.
Now back to our top story. NBC's Alice Barr reports from Washington.
Get on the ground!
A national reckoning over police use of force reignited as a heartbroken mother prays her loss will bring real change.
I feel like my son was sacrificed for the greater good.
29-year-old Tyree Nichols died 3 days after being brutally beaten by Memphis police during a traffic stop. A 6th officer has been relieved of duty, 5 others fired and charged in his death, all part of a specialized street crimes unit that's now been disbanded.
What's his name?
But the calls for justice echo far beyond this tragic case, with particular scrutiny on similar specialized units in departments across the country.
This run, catch them, lock them up, throw away the key model has to be shifted into a public safety model.
Advocates calling on Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act that includes
banning chokeholds, dealing with no warrant searches, dealing with accreditation of police departments.
Now is the time for action. This is about people being safe.
Bipartisan Senate negotiations over that bill broke down in 2021, with Republicans now in control of the House, one leading member arguing police reform belongs at the local level.
I don't know that there's any law that can stop that evil that we saw.
Both sides acknowledging the inhumanity caught on camera in the Tyree Nichols case, but turning outrage into real reform faces an uphill battle in a divided Congress. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
The 21-foot killer whale that died and washed ashore in Palm Coast will have a life after death. The whale is currently at a secret location on the University of Florida's campus.
WUFT's Aubrey Beaucalon is here in studio. She visited the research and collections at the Florida Museum of Natural History. Tell us about it, Aubrey.
Absolutely. So the skull of the last recorded killer whale was found in 1956. Back then, it was too decomposed for scientists to figure out why it died. But in this case, the university received the whale a day after it washed ashore. The facility will study the whale's decomposition and its effect on the environment. The skeleton will then go to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Research collections like the ones at the Florida Museum and the Smithsonian are important to many research projects. These libraries of life help researchers look into the past to understand the changes of an animal's ecosystem. Whether the body is studied for forensic research in Gainesville or displayed in a museum, it will continue to impact the way scientists understand the world.
Thanks, Aubrey. That's really interesting information about the killer whale. In more news, pharmacies are reducing hours of operation.
Plus, we'll have the details about a plane crash in South Florida coming up on First at 5.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Picking up your prescription from CVS or Walmart could get a little harder. Both companies will scale back pharmacy hours in March. The industry continues to battle a shortage of pharmacists and other key positions.
That takes away the convenience of having a pharmacy close by, because now you're searching for a pharmacy in your community, but it could be 20 minutes away.
Many shoppers in Miami say even if a few stores are left open, it will still make getting essential medications that much more difficult for busy parents.
A small plane made an emergency landing on a South Florida causeway over the weekend. 4 people were on board the aircraft heading towards Virginia Key when the plane went down on the Reichenbach causeway in Key Biscayne. One of the wings of the plane reportedly hit a Miami-Dade County bus that had 30 passengers, but no injuries were reported. The causeway entrance had been blocked off due to the crash investigation, but it later reopened. Miami-Dade police are investigating what led to the crash.
TikTok CEO is set to testify on Capitol Hill in March. House Energy and Commerce Committee Chair Kathy McMorris Rogers announced that Shou Zi Chew will testify before that committee on March 23rd. He is expected to answer questions from the full panel. Some of these topics include social media sites, consumer privacy and data security practices, the platform's impact on kids, and the company's relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. Concerns about TikTok giving the Chinese government a backdoor into the personal information of users in the U.S. has led some officials to call for a nationwide ban on the app. Last month, President Biden signed legislation that included a ban on federal employees from using TikTok on government-owned devices. More than 24 states have passed similar bans for state-owned devices as well. This will be Shou Zichu's first appearance before a congressional committee.
The new chairman of the House Oversight Committee says its first hearing will look into pandemic spending. Congressman James Comer, Republican from Tennessee, told the National Press Club today the committee's first hearing will be next week. He promised that stimulus spending and other programs related to the COVID-19 pandemic will be put under the microscope.
I want to be a substantive committee. I want to be transparent with the media in everything that we're doing. I believe that the committee needs to get back to its primary mission, and that is to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement in the federal government. That's why we're going to have our first hearing this week on the pandemic spending. There have been reports, you all seen them, and many of you have written about them, where hundreds of billions of dollars of potential waste in stimulus spending, PPP loan funds, and different parts of the pandemic dollars. Now, that dates back 3 years, and that covers 2 administrations. Unfortunately, over the last 2 years, there hasn't been a single hearing in the Oversight Committee dealing with the pandemic spending, even though we spent record amounts of money. So that's very concerning.
National Press Club, and I am a congressional reporter
So
with Bloomberg.
I was wearing my jacket on the way to the station like I normally do, but I had to take it off today. I was shocked.
Oh my gosh, it's gotten so hot so quick. I'm thinking no more blazers until next winter. We're done.
Honestly,
so hot.
I cannot believe the temperatures are this warm in January. Like,
crazy.
never does this happen. I know we were talking that it was a record for the hottest January ever.
Yes, and a record high for this afternoon. So will this heat stay? Well, I'm Julia Haley with your full forecast in a few minutes.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
January 2023 was one of our hottest Januaries on record, and that continues this evening, sitting in the 80s all across north central Florida, 82 Gainesville, and even 86 for Jacksonville, 83 St. Augustine, 77 for Cedar Key. And that's an increase of about 7 degrees here in Gainesville, 4 degrees in Ocala, and just above I-10, a 12-degree increase in Jacksonville, and also a 12-degree increase in Tallahassee. So a very warm day with those record-breaking highs, even hitting 87 degrees in Jacksonville, almost the 90s in January. So this winter has been a hot one for sure. Now these southwesterly winds are helping to bring some of those warmer temperatures from the Gulf to our area, seeing about a 15-mile-per-hour wind in Jacksonville and a 10-mile-per-hour wind here in Gainesville. And if you take a look outside, seeing those pretty clear blue skies outside, 82 degrees, feels like 83. Look at how clear they are. The sun is starting to set as well. It's a beautiful day to go outside. Now Monday evening, we're going to have those partly cloudy skies. Temperatures are dropping, and you're going to see some fog start to form. So if you're going out tomorrow morning very early, you'll start to see that widespread fog, mostly in the Panhandle, but also some here in Gainesville as well. And those highs are going to stay in the 80s for your Tuesday. 82 for Gainesville, 83 Ocala, 81 Jacksonville, and 84 Lake City. And onto our future radar, starting to see this cold front bring in some showers toward the Panhandle on Wednesday. And as that stationary front comes toward us as well, we'll see some more chances for showers, but overall it's going to be looking pretty for the next few days. Upper winds showing the heat as it comes toward us, those southwesterly winds bringing that heat, and our MUGGY meter showing how temperatures are dropping, or not temperatures, dew points are dropping. And so we're starting off with a muggy week and ending with a more pleasant week as those showers start to ramp up. So this week in Gainesville, seeing those widespread chances for fog in the morning, Tuesday and Wednesday, with those highs in the 80s. The showers are expected on Friday. And for your 6-day outlook, that chance for fog Tuesday and Wednesday, staying warm from Tuesday to about Thursday, dropping around Friday when those showers come in, and then a cooler weekend. Back to you.
I'll be sure to get my umbrella for Friday. Thanks, Julia. The University of Florida Museum of Natural History is returning remains to Native Americans.
Remains of their ancestors. The museum has the 11th largest Native American ancestor holding in the United States. 3 tribes, the Seminole Tribe of Florida, the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and the Miccosukee Tribe want their ancestors back. The Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act of 1990 requires as such since the museum receives federal funding. It's hired a full-time repatriation coordinator to identify which tribes ancestors belong to. 100,000 ancestors remain in museums across the United States. Read more of Katie Heisen's story on WFT.org, where you'll learn more about the museum and Native Americans working together to identify these ancestors.
All right, Julia, I know you're normally on the sports desk, and I hear it's a big weekend for the Gators. So, what is coming up on sports?
Well, you're right, Kennedy. Different desk, same me, but big weekend. We had Gator Gymnastics breaking a record. Men's basketball played former player Keontae Johnson, and I hear women's basketball is back today.
That's right, Julianna. After an 8-day break, the Gators women's basketball team hits the court in a road game against Auburn tonight. I'll have more on that game and the Gators weekend after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Kaitlyn Wadulack. The Gators women's basketball team is back on the court tonight for a road game against Auburn. In their last time out over a week ago, Florida ended their 4-game losing streak with a 73-55 win over Vanderbilt. 4 Gators scored in double digits against the Commodores. Nina Ricards posted 15 points, Alberte Rimdahl finished with 14, Rashea Kyle landed 13 points, and Leilani Correa ended with 10. Last year, Florida defeated Auburn twice. First with a 68-63 home win in the O-Dome, then an 83-77 victory in the Tigers' territory. Tip-off tonight is at 7 p.m. On the men's side, the Gators fell to 5th-ranked Kansas State on the road Saturday, 64-50. Florida is now 12-9 on the season. Despite the loss, the Gators got to play against former teammate Keontae Johnson. Here's what Johnson had to say about his reunion with the Gators.
I mean, I was definitely looking forward to it. Just saying, the athletic trainer Duke, he's one of the main person that saved my life on the court. So just seeing him on the bench and just talking to him after the game just helped brighten up my day.
Number 2 Tennessee Wednesday. Tip-off is set for 7 p.m. In a record-breaking meet, the 2nd-ranked Gators gymnastics squad scored big Friday night with a huge home win over the Georgia Bulldogs. Florida set the SEC regular season unbeaten streak record at the meet, now 24-0-1 against conference opponents. During Friday's meet, Trinity Thomas landed her 3rd 10 of the season, this time on vault. The 10 gave Thomas her 4th career gym slam, making her the only collegiate gymnast ever to secure at least 4 10s in each event. The Gators next travel to Fayetteville Friday for a meet against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Meanwhile, Gator baseball officially opened spring practice Friday in preparation for the start of the season. Florida had 3 scrimmages over the weekend and have a slate of practices and scrimmages scheduled for this week. The Gators have open practices Tuesday through Thursday with intra-squad scrimmages set for Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon. Florida officially opens their season February 17th when they host Charleston Southern for a 3-game series. In other Gator baseball news, former slugger Brad Wilkerson has been hired as the assistant hitting coach with the Yankees. Prior to this, Wilkerson spent the last 3 years as an assistant coach and recruiting coordinator for Jacksonville University. Also, former Gator Darren O'Day announced his retirement today. O'Day spent 15 seasons in the MLB, most recently with the Atlanta Braves. Mark your calendars, Gator fans. Thursday, April 13th is the official date of this year's Orange and Blue game. This will be the Gators' 2nd season under head coach Billy Napier. Last season, Florida finished 6-7 overall and 3-5 in conference play. Fans may be able to see new faces on the team play in the spring game, including quarterback transfer Graham Mertz.
And before we go, we'll have one last check of the weather.
Julia, please remind me, for fashion reasons, is this weather going to continue?
Well, I think you won't need your jacket because we'll be bringing on the heat for the next few days. Tuesday, that chance for fog lasts and even into Wednesday, but sitting in the lower 80s even through Thursday as well. Friday, when those showers come, temperatures are going to drop, so you can wear a jacket once again for the weekend. And looking at those highs, mainly in the 80s, those lows sitting mainly in the 60s. Those clouds going to stay through the majority of the week, seeing that chance for fog Tuesday and Wednesday. Clouds staying Thursday due to all of that moisture in the air. Friday is where those showers are, and that moisture is going to come down to the ground, and then we're going to have a cloudy weekend. Back to you.
Thanks, Julia. BBC World News is next, and PBS NewsHour is coming up at 7.
And remember, your Florida news is always on at WFT.org. Have a good night.